It's like this desperate feeling that I tried to escape. This heartbreak over a place that's so different. Now it doesn't feel like the same place. None of my third grade classmates understood why I would want a shotgun for my birthday. Every time I step out of the truck with the dogs, let them run and hopefully find some birds, there's this piece of me that just feels totally content.
Phoebe is our goddaughter, and she comes over with her dogs for bird hunting season whenever she can. Our experiences with her have just grown over the years. It's been great.
My grandmother was a great bird hunter and fly fisherman. You know, she lived back in the 20s, so she had that passion. So, you know, it's what's been passed down to me, and then it's so much fun to share it with someone else. I feel that's a great gift to give to them.
The Henry's Fork is considered essentially the finest fly fishing river in the world. And I was fortunate enough to guide here more than 25 years ago. It's like, man, the magic is still here. And it's almost like I never left. But I've never had the opportunity to bring my son here before.
One of the best things about exploring the Rockies is being surrounded by 2.5 million acres of wilderness. Being able to explore these wild places with your family and friends. I honestly can't remember my first fish or my best fish. All of my fly fishing stories have to do with people I love and people I've fished with. I think my favorite ones are the ones that I have with my daughters.
I was lucky to grow up hunting and fishing. One of the things that always brought me to fishing as a child was just a mystery of what's down there, you know, what are they doing down there? So when I first found ice fishing, it was the ultimate, being able to walk out across some vast reservoir and drill a hole and work out what's down there. That was too much for me. I've been hooked on that ever since.
There's nothing as magic as that first light when shooting hours begin. I'll never forget when I saw my first elk in the mountains. And from then on, I knew that elk hunting and big game hunting in this part of the country was a part of my blood and a part of my being. I've been hunting 60 years. Last year was my 38th bull in 38 seasons, all on public land. And I'm gonna try to make it 40 for 40. We'll see what happens.
I think that one of the greatest successes of American democracy, or our democratic republic, has been the sustainability of our fish and wildlife, and the fact that people actually do fish and hunt and eat from the landscape here.
Most of the food we eat is deer and elk, and when we have fish, we always eat fish. Bringing dinner home for the families, that's a great feeling.
One of the reasons it's so important to be able to take fish and game for your family's sustenance is in order to commune with the landscape, which supports you in every way.
One of the reasons I love hunting in Montana is because of the large open landscapes and the fact that you can be watching your dogs going up and down hillsides and mountains. Bird hunting for me is mostly about the dogs, to be honest, and the great meals you might get from it.
You know, the dogs are covering maybe 18 miles in a good 3-hour hunt. With the pointing dogs, they want to cover the landscape and find these birds.
Big game hunting is so much more than just pulling the trigger and coming home with a trophy. I mean, you come home with meat, and I enjoy wild meat, but it also is, you know, the experience that it offers. The whole total experience of being out there, you kind of get a chance to decompress, and you come home refreshed. It's just a wonderful experience.
I think it's hard not to be happy when you're walking across these beautiful landscapes with the dogs, and that's something that's been kind of like my outdoor therapy.
I've fished the Henry's Fork so much and so often for so many years now. And the cool thing that I can do now is to see all these things through Kian's eyes as he's experiencing them for the first time.
This is an amazing trip and such a beautiful place. I see rising trout, like salmon flies, mayflies, stoneflies, caddis, a whole bunch of different kinds.
Out of nowhere, like, okay, there's this fish, and he sets the hook, and he lights up, and he's radiant. And what do? You give thanks.
My oldest daughter, Ella, gets stronger on the sticks every single time we get out. And Delaney becomes a better angler every time we go out.
It's never a dull moment. It's always something going on.
One thing about fishing with my daughters is they're teenagers now. And so it's all about having a good time and enjoying being out there together. And it's a great way to spend your life.
The one thing I think I've been successful at as a father is to pass on the enthusiasms and the real passions that I've had. And somehow my children were able to pick up on that and run with it.
I go hunting with my dad and my brother. We hunt a lot, and we go ice fishing when it's winter, and when it's cold, I think that's one of my favorite experiences.
There's a continuity that human beings have always had in the past, where families passed along special places, where families were able to share the important things with their children and with their grandchildren. And that's never really been in doubt before. Yet anybody who's aware can look at these incredible landscapes and say, man, there's something wrong here.
We've raised our family on the Rocky Mountain front, which is a cold and wild weather place, you know. That snowpack and those winter months, they make the rest of our life. As old as I am now, I have some decades of paying attention. It's been disappointing to me to see the lessening of snowpack, you know, the later frost, or the more yo-yo type weather that we have now. These extremes which have become norms.
You know, a perfect example, last year we started the season, we had snow, we had good snow, and 2 weeks later in November, it was 68, 69 degrees. We lost all our snow. And then you have to worry about getting your elk out of the woods because it warms up so much. So we're seeing real inconsistencies in snowpack and snow conditions. You know, all you have to do is look around and you'll see such a change in our forest structure. Our aspen clones dead and dying. And this all has an effect on wildlife. Everything from ruffed grouse to bighorn sheep to mule deer to elk to moose, they all depend on nitrogen-rich aspen. Whitebark pine, of course, has just been decimated over the last 20 years. My places where I hunt elk and where I've hunted mountain goats, it was all whitebark pine. Those populations are gone.
I think the bird hunters have always recognized that the spring conditions and the dramatic storms can affect how the bird season is, and the summer range of sharp-tailed grouse is shifted up to the north because of just the temperature changes that we're experiencing. So,
when we went out hunting this year, the first 3 weeks, it was brutal. There was not a drop of dew on our boots. It was so dry, the grass was crunchy, the birds were hard to find.
It wasn't that we didn't have enough rain. We had nothing until the fall. It just turned dry and it was a fire hazard constantly.
It was in the 90s in mid-September, and the dogs were hot, and we weren't happy either. It was miserable.
I don't know how many hundreds of fires there were in Montana, but I think they were counted in hundreds. It seemed like there was smoke all summer long.
The smoke this summer was terrible. It's hard on everyone. It's hard on the dogs. It seems to be getting worse every year. A lot of public land closed down this year due to the fire risk. But it's sad to think that this is a trend that's continuing.
Our rivers are too low, too dry, too hot for fish to thrive in the middle of the summer. Our glaciers have melted and are almost gone, and that's our water source. It's affecting our economy. It's affecting our families. I mean, it's affecting the future of my kids for sure.
It's almost like this litany that goes season by season, because you start out here in the Rockies with, man, you know what, our snows are coming later than they used to. And then you move into, God, it's not as cold as it used to be. No wonder all those beetles are surviving and decimating our forests. Then as you get into spring, you're like, man, it's getting warmer way, way earlier. When that starts melting your snow and you're so dependent upon snow and so dependent on water storage up in the mountains, yeah, that is a bad thing. And so our runoff comes earlier. That means less water in the summertime, and warm water holds less oxygen. And it stresses the fish. And so not only is that bad for the fish, it's bad for the fishermen. They shut down rivers here in Montana. They shut down rivers all across the northern Rockies. That was unheard of 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
There's no question in my mind that there are increasing changes on our landscapes and in our waters.
There are just tons and tons of scientific organizations, National Academy of Sciences, NOAA, NASA, who look at this stuff day in and day out, and who do the hard work, who do the work based on science and facts and numbers, who tell us we're doing this to ourselves.
People would say, well, I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in that science. It seems to me to be overly a luxury to be able to say you don't believe in science while benefiting in every way from all the other science. Sportsmen, hunters, and fishermen, I think we have to proceed as individuals to act upon the knowledge that we have and walk forward with the knowledge that we do own facts and we can act upon those.
It makes me feel bad that people don't want to recognize that or show any sort of concern for the outdoors that, you know, is a pretty big deal in the United States.
And, you know, it's pretty much cultural suicide, and we seem to be okay with that, and I'm not okay with that, and I think we need to work to change that.
You know, the United States is so unique in its lifestyle that we get to pursue these things and enjoy them. And it's not only an economic driver for society, and it pays its taxes, but it's what people like to do. It's how Americans like to live.
It is so much a part of our lives. Our family would be diminished if we didn't have the time that we spend outdoors.
My father had great fishing stories from when he was young. We have this portfolio of extraordinary experiences based on freezing cold winters and the world working as in some way that we're accustomed to. If you let those things go, you violated the pact that you made between yourself and the land that supports you.
I think my experience as a hunter has only enhanced my commitment to protect the landscapes that I'm able to enjoy in hunting, but that are also important for our economy, whether it's agriculture, even forestry. We have to have healthy landscapes to have healthy economies.
But sportsmen need to look at the world around them and try to understand how that world works and what their stake in it is. And if one can do that, a person can do that, then this becomes much more important to them. You can't let those things go. Those things are, you have an obligation to any country that gives you so much to try to make sure that it keeps going.
I like to think about younger generations hunting when I'm long gone. We still have a lot of elk. Should we lose our hunting opportunities, we stand to lose so much more than the actual animal. We're going to lose the experience, the whole experience that it offers.
Keeping that three-way bond between me, the dogs, and the land alive is absolutely worth fighting for. That's something that I never want to lose. That place is worth fighting for.
And that's something I definitely try to drive home with my daughters is, we're very lucky and this is yours and it's yours to lose. I mean, this is our home and none of those other things matter unless we protect that first.
I've been disappointed that the science being in, the knowledge being acquired, that our species really has made a choice to take this path, this easier path, really. To do that is basically, it's to deny reality, and there's a serious penalty to be paid for that.
It's a kick in the gut. It's like, what can I do about this? Well, as a hunter or an angler, I can speak up. So I try and do that as much as I can.
We absolutely need to be talking about climate change and the effect that that's going to have on our experiences outside and the landscape. As uncomfortable as some of the conversations I've had have been, I think that they're valuable conversations.
Yeah, all of these things have happened, these changes, but these are things that the scientists have been talking about for a long time. And I'm tired of just talking about what I see because we should all be seeing it. It's so right there. It's time to act on these things that we've seen, not just tell people how bad it sucks. It's truly becoming independent of fossil fuels that's going to do the trick. Alternative energy sources are soaring above fossil fuels right now in terms of what they're doing for our economy and what our future can look like. These jobs are there, the energy is there, the chance to make this difference already exists, so we can't lose sight of that.
That the solutions for going forward in a positive way to address climate change exist and are at our fingertips. That's what people should understand.
And we need to move forward in a positive way with clean energy, with solar and with wind and things like that, that don't contaminate our atmosphere with CO2.
But what the United States is good about is figuring stuff out. If we can just accept that we need to slow down CO2 emissions and put that challenge out there, there's no better country to figure out how to do that than the United States. And why not? It's going to be easier to deal with it today than it is tomorrow.
Why would you not want to be more efficient in your use of energy? It seems crazy not to.
So even as we're doing all we can to, make our own carbon footprint smaller, it's not enough to make the difference that we need to make globally. And so the number one thing that we can do, and I really feel like we have to do, is contact your elected leadership. We have to have that political will. We have to let our voices be heard. Call up your congressmen, senators, and just voice your opinion. Say, I'm doing what I can, and I need you to be on board with this as well.
And how we politicize something as clear as climate science may be one of the bars which we use to say how successful our society and our civilization is going to be.
We have got to go to the polls. We've got to tell our politicians what needs to be done, and the time is right now to do that.
I think we really do have a moral obligation to leave the next generations a world that is thriving and healthy, and shame on us if we leave them a diminished world.
Hunting is good for the soul. The whole experience is good for the soul. And if we lose that, and if we allow climate change to negatively impact our hunting opportunities, our kids and our grandkids have every right to kick us in the shins and say, what the hell were you doing while this whole thing went belly up?